there, this is Mike Holmes at the Reach Keep podcast, and it's good to have you here. Welcome aboard. We're going to spend a little bit of time today on a Zoom training call that we did with many pastors from around the country, and this is on best practices that are being done out there on what it takes to reach new young families in your community. So I hope this is helpful to you. I will come back on at the end and give you just a couple moments of how to get in touch and how to get some of these solutions going on at your church and help you answer some questions that you may have after watching this. So we'll try to keep this short and simple. We'll see you at the end, and God bless. All right. Well, hey, welcome aboard. Good to have you here. We're going to be talking about what I call best practices. These are things that churches are doing right now to reach new young families. There's a lot of benefit of studying best practices. We all do it. It's like if you're fishing, you go, hey, what are you catching them on? You know, it's like, are they biting on worms today or flies? You know, you ask those kind of questions. So it's an important thing to to work on best practices and find out what's working. Everything, of course, gets tweaked to the individual church and different people who, different ministry, different sizes. We have a lot of churches I work with, churches that are, extremely small, just single pastor, bivocational, 20, 30 people, to pastors that have, well, I have one church that has like 9 pastors. I mean, they have a Spanish pastor and a deaf pastor and a children's pastor and a senior pastor and an old people pastor. I don't think they call him the old people pastor, but you know what I mean. Now they got all sorts of staff. So you have to tweak things and change them around. But these are sort of some principal things here that I found are best practices. And what I want to give you is sort of go through these best practices that are there, and I'll have you write them down on piece of paper, like say, make a kind of a grid like that, 3 columns. We're going to put something in the top of each one of these, and I'll share my screen and just give you a couple simple things for you note takers. And then the rest of it's just kind of handwritten stuff that I'll go through. But these are all things that you can do. And when we get to the end of this, hopefully you will have something you can do like today before the day's over. I have several pastors that are like, what can I do right now to reach young families? And that is sort of, my forte, my strength is helping churches reach young families. I understand that you have many other irons in the fire. Okay, some of you involved politically, some of you have Christian schools, some of you are, very much into missions and have missions conferences, churches that are very much into, have their own little Bible Institute, and all of those are great things. And I'm for all of you if you're doing all those things. I don't have much expertise in any of those things, but I can tell you how to reach new young families, and I can help you with that. And that's what the focus of my ministry really since 1988, when I kind of stepped full time into Baptist Youth Mission, was helping churches reach out to the kids of their community and then thus bring the moms and dads in. In fact, the title of our ministry is Reach Keep, and it really came from reach them and keep them, but it was reach people and then keep them, but get the moms and dads too. In other words, not just, and I grew up in a bus ministry type of thing, so we reached a lot of kids, but we weren't necessarily bringing the parents in. So I want to help you churches and everybody to reach and keep young families and have a focus of reaching moms and dads of elementary age kids is sort of the narrowest focus that we would have here. So let me, I'm going to hit the screen share thing here, make sure you're all on here, and just bring up just a little keynote thing that I have here. This is what I call this management grid. You ought to be able to see that. And let me just put these up here. On the top of your screen, I want you to write these 3, or on the top of your columns here, write these 3 things. So solutions, okay, and I'll give you the details of what that means. And then I want you to write the word atmosphere right there. And then I want you to write the word relationships. These are kind of the 3 general categories of things that you'll be able to work on. And then I'll give you a few things to put in here to kind of fill this in, and then I'll give you a couple more things, kind of the to-do list out of all that. So, what I mean by solutions here, and this is a best practice, is that people, churches that are reaching and keeping new young families are what we call solution-based churches. Okay, they are providing solutions to families that come in. When people come, they're getting something that they didn't have before they came in. Okay, they're getting an answer to a problem, and there's mountains of problems that people have, and obviously we know the gospel is the main solution. They need to be saved and call upon the name of the Lord, and from there they begin to grow. But when someone calls on the name of the Lord and they're saved, man, as you know and I know, they still got boatloads of problems. And we want to make sure that we are what we call providing or solving family-oriented problems. Okay, so write that in your thing there. It's the family-oriented. It's that age. Now, like again, there's missions issues and Christian school issues and political things and some of that, but the focus here is solving family problems. And we want to make sure that our churches are taking care of that. So solutions is what we mean by that. I like to give this illustration. In fact, TJ, I think you and I were talking about the other day. It's like, why do people go to Walmart? Okay, they go to Walmart because the last time they went to Walmart, they got what they needed. Okay, they got something. And why will people come back to your church? It's because they got something that they needed. Not a ton of information. I mean, I don't go to Walmart or any other store to get information. I go there to get what the particular thing it is that I happen to need. So a solution-based church is really where we're at. And I'll give you a few more things to write down there. The second one is this idea of atmosphere. And it's our churches need to, and what you need to as the spiritual leader there, is to create and maintain a wholesome atmosphere. And I'll go deeper into this in just the idea in just a moment. But this is an atmosphere where people can come and again, it's not just come and grow, but they walk into a growth environment. We had a pastor's wife. In fact, Heath, Nikki York. She was at our church visiting here a while back. Let me hit this admit here. We got one more guy hopping on. We had, she came to our church. They were visiting our church, and we had all these different programs going on, this and that, and the other thing going on. And our church, we very much work on the atmosphere. She says, this church smells like growth. Okay. And that's what we need to do is we need to have a church that, there's some churches that are all about excellence and some churches are all about fine arts and some churches that are like, say, all about, outreach and I'm for all that kind of stuff. But when new people come into a church, they need to land like in the fertile soil. And our churches need to be that fertile soil that they land in. And it needs to be obvious to them. Now, it might be obvious to us as pastors, like, oh, I got really good, smart deacons and I got sharp people and all that kind of stuff. But it needs to be where people come in and they just go, wow, this is what I'm looking for. I'm sure you know this, but your people live in a broken, messed up world. And many of them, their family is not a healthy environment. And the television and the media that spews into their house is not healthy. And even their workplace is not a healthy atmosphere. And what can we present them? Guys, we can give them the local church, okay? The good, fertile soil. And they land in a church and they walk in and it is different than anything that they experience those other 160 some hours out of the week. And that's what our church, this is a best practice, that you work on the atmosphere. When you walk in, it's just powerful. And again, some of it's like, good music and welcoming people. but it's also that there is growth and things going on. The last one across the top here is let's see if I got it here. Okay, it's this idea of prioritizing relationships. Okay, prioritizing relationships. And I work in a lot of churches where, preaching is king and music is queen and whatever. And I understand, that concept, and we got to have good preaching. We are a wholesome, good music kind of a church where we're at. We're not into a lot of the modern type music, but folks, it's the relationships. And I'll give you a statement. In fact, I'll put it on the screen here in just a minute. But it's this, that people come to church for events. In other words, they're invited to an event. They come because they're invited to a Sunday. They come, it's a big day. It's this, that, or the other thing. But the reason they are staying is because of a relationship. People come to church for events, but they stay because of relationships. And it's going to be, number one, a relationship with the Lord. They're going to meet God and feel the presence of God there. And I have been in most of your guys' churches and heard you guys preach, and we preach and we want the presence of God there. And I know that is a goal that all of us have. But people just really need to come and catch the Lord. But what they need to catch too is a relationship with a human that's next to them. Somebody that they can listen to, someone that they can talk to, someone that they can fellowship with, someone that they can pour things out. And Pastor, you probably know this. After church, people come up to you and they go, "Hey, can I talk to you? You were just talking to me for an hour. I want to talk to you for an hour now." And that's a hard thing to do, but you need to prioritize relationships. And we'll get into some of that a little bit more in details. Let's see if I can get the next one. Here's on the solution thing. I want you to write this down. And this is something that will just really help you, is that every Sunday you need to solve a problem. When people come into church, they need to walk out with a solution. So that's the little saying that we have, every Sunday solve a problem. And so your message needs to have a solution to it. We just recorded a podcast just the other day. It had to do with one of the ways to do this, and is that in your sermon introduction, okay, that few seconds there when people are at their highest level of attention, okay, is that when you say, open your Bibles to this, and you're just getting ready to start, that's when people are paying attention, okay? In that first sentence or two or three, you need to give the promise of a solution, okay? So, hey, today, when we're done with this sermon, you're going to walk out of here and you're going to have a tool to be able to handle your anxiety. Because, folks, you are not alone, and God wants to help you with that. So I'm going to give you a tool. So listen carefully. I'm going to give you something that's going to help you have peace that passes understanding. So you say a sentence like that. Or you might say it the other way. It's like, "Hey, thanks for coming to church today. We're going to open our Bibles here to, whatever, 1 Peter in just a moment. But I just want to let you know that right now in our junior church, your children are learning a concept that is so important. They are learning the character quality of respect. And everybody in the world needs a lot more respect. And so your children are going to walk out of this building today with a tool to be better at respecting. So when you get to them in the car, make sure you talk to them, ask them what they learned, because, folks, we are helping you raise your children. You see what I did there? We're solving a problem, okay? We're doing that. Now, sometimes people come to church with things that are not necessarily solved with a preaching type thing, but they're coming because they met somebody and they're going to, connect with a Bible study later in the week, or they want to talk with somebody after church. But that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we are solving problems, and that this concept of every Sunday solve a problem is moved downstream to all of your staff people. They know, your Sunday school teachers know that they need to have a solution-based message. They need it, and if like kids need good friends, they need to have, one of the best things parents are looking for when they walk into a new church, new people are coming in, they're saying, "I hope my kid finds a good friend." And so for your Sunday school and your junior churches to be able to connect kids together And for those kids to be able to have time to kind of talk and fellowship and bond a little bit, man, if kids hop in the car after church, guys, and parents say, "What did you learn today?" And they're like, "I don't really know, but I met a kid," and they know that that's like a wholesome kid. Man, it's thumbs up. I hope your teachers teach good stuff and it's memorable, but I hope that your visiting people get good role models and make new friends. Those are very powerful things. And churches that are reaching young families are managing this. In other words, they're paying attention to this. And we'll give you a few ways to do that here with this grid in just a minute. This next one here is the atmosphere, and I kind of mentioned it. But young families need good soil. Okay, we're all familiar with the parable of the sower and the seeds, and some of it fell on the rocky ground and some of the stony ground, and the birds pecked it up, and all that kind of stuff. But young families are absolutely looking for a wholesome place where they can put their roots down. And so for some of you, and this is something that you hear it all the time, it's like we can't compete with the mega church. We can't compete with the big church. The big church has all the music. They got all the programs. They got all of that. You know what you can do if you're a small church? You can be a tremendous, wholesome environment. You can be caring, you can be loving, you can be all about growth, you can be all about asking questions, you can train your people to talk to other people and meet with them later. And, just really your people can become the wholesome pieces of soil that seed falls into. So young families need this good soil that they fall into, and we can work on that. I come from a farm background, and one of the reasons that you're out there tilling the soil in the springtime, okay, is because you're turning it over, you're getting all the stalks underneath, you're getting everything else, and you're getting that soil in good condition. We put our fertilizer down, we get our herbicides and that kind of stuff down, and you get your everything in there that you need, so that when that seed lands there, that thing has everything growing for it, and we can manage those things. And you can work on good soil this afternoon when this is over. Okay, we'll give you some ideas on doing that. The next one here is I mentioned, people come for events, but they stay for relationships, and kind of keep that in mind, because it's the prioritizing and the management of the relationship environment. Okay, I used to do vacation Bible schools and travel all over the country doing VBSs. We did a teen rally every night, and we'd start at 6 and have the teens till about 9 o'clock at night or so. Well, we would preach, till 2 minutes to 9, and then we dismiss it, and all the kids, the parents would come pick up the teens, and they would all go home. I learned real quick that some of the best time where you could really meet with the kids and talk with them was after the service. And so we changed some of our format around so that we got done preaching about 8:30, and we had some fellowship time afterwards where we could talk with those young people and go, "Hey, how's it going with you and the Lord? How's things going? Oh, really?" Kind of go through some of those questions. And you probably know that it's after church, some of those fellowship times are some of the best, absolute best times. So how can we manage better relationships? Well, a part of it's a clock, okay, is to make sure that we don't just chew up all the time doing our, preaching, but we have time for them to hang around. Some of it's, other things that we have. We have, for example, in our nursery, in our church, the stated goal for our nursery is for our nursery workers to have a meaningful conversation with the young mom. So in other words, the nursery workers know that what they are there for is a relationship, not just babysitting and holding a kid. They are there to actually talk to the moms. So because of that, we make sure that the workers have their cell phones, put away. We make sure that, there's no distractions. We make sure it's clean. We make sure that the schedule is there. So as soon as thing is over, I work in a lot of churches, and I do a lot of assessment. I've been to several of your churches, actually, some of you guys, and done an assessment where we just walk around all Sunday morning and pay attention to things. And here's one of the problems we have. As soon as junior church is over, as soon as the nurse, or as soon as regular church is over, junior church ends instantly. The nursery ends instantly, and all those kids are just rushed back to their parents right away. Well, what we have found is if we can stretch our nursery schedule and have our nursery workers hold on to the kids longer, okay, then those adults can have some adult fellowship and talk after church with the pastor. They're staying because of the relationship. They're talking to a friend, or they might even walk into the nursery to pick up their baby, but the lady's not in a hurry to get rid of the kids. She's like, "Hey, this is my time." I mean, when a lady walks in to pick up a little baby, that's like saying sick 'em to a dog. I mean, that's like our workers like, yeah, let's talk. How's things going? How's it, how are you doing during the week? How's the teething going? How's this and that? And they ask questions to build those relationships. So you can manage relationship times by dealing with the clock and by making sure there's an environment, where you can do that. Our children's department, when parents go to pick up their kids in our children department, we've got, refreshments, we've got chairs, we got places they can sit and talk because we want our children's workers to be able to talk to the adults and let them know kind of how they're advancing. So these three areas, the solutions, the atmosphere, and the relationships are super important. Now, one of the things that we need to view ourselves as, and I'll give you this next one here, is kind of back to the solutions. And this is sort of a mentality for yourself, and then I'll give you a few other things here. Um, is that you need, as a pastor, to view yourself. Okay, the way you view yourself is super important. Now, I know I have people call me, "Hey, preacher, how you doing?" And that comes from the 1 hour thing I do, preach to them. Some people call you pastor, which is a little bit deeper of a commitment there. It's like, hey, he pastors and he loves me and he helps me out and he visits me at the hospital and all that kind of stuff. But on the inside, and those are fine titles, preachers and pastor, that's what they call them. They call me Mr. Mike or Pastor Mike all the time. But what I want you to view yourself as, and what will help you to reach new young families, is you need to view yourself as a developer of people. In other words, you take people from 0 to 100, from A to B, from whatever it is, you move them across a spectrum. And that is your job. And every single person that comes into your flock, you are moving them along. I raised sheep for a good part of my life before I got saved, and the idea is with lambs is you develop them and get them to market, with the ewes. You save back some of your ewe lambs and you turn them into breeding stock and you develop them into good ones, and you cull them and get rid of the bad ones and get the good ones doing better. But the whole idea is that you're developing a flock, a healthy flock, and you are working with every level of it. And so when we take time to view ourselves as a developer, it really changes so much. It was several years ago when I was getting ready to kind of turn the church over, and I knew that I would be kind of stepping back and getting someone younger in here because we have a ton of young families. And I started to ask myself, like, where would be the best place to find a new pastor? And just like on the mission field, we all know the best place to find a pastor is in the flock. It's a develop a national, as we would call them. And we're in a unique spot out here. We're in the middle of sagebrush, Wyoming. I mean, if you can't handle 9 months of winter and isolation, it's fairly rough out here. So I got thinking, which one of the men in our church could become a pastor? And I made a list of every single man in our church and went through, and I thought, what would I have to do? What would I have to do to take that person and move them to become a senior pastor? It was a tremendous, healthy exercise for me. And I want to encourage you to become a developer of families. Write all your families down. What can I do to develop this family to be better? How can I help them have better daily devotions? How can I help this man be a better leader in his family? Write the names down. And this would be on when we get to this grid in a minute, this would be one of the things you'd put on there. Families. How can I take my families and provide solution for my families? So that's a powerful thing, is the way to view yourself. Under atmosphere, there's a couple words that are just absolutely put it all together in one word or one little thought, and that is this idea of conscientious forethought, that you and I would be thinking ahead of every little detail that we can. What's it like from the parking lot? What's it like when you walk in the front door? What's it like when you go up the stairs? What's it like when you're there? What's it like if you're a first time visitor? What is it like if you're a second time, a third time visitor? What if you've been gone for a while? All the different things that we can do, and be thinking ahead with all this getting the soil ready, making sure things are warm. That warm soil is what really germinates seeds. And when someone thinks ahead at every level, that is just one of the most wonderful things that happen. Okay, they've thought it all through. I was talking to a couple pastors. I do a lot of kind of what I call paid coaching, where some guys, pay me to I listen to their sermons every week. I go through their stuff. I meet with them every week, just like I'm a staff person. And so I go through one of their things. And one of the guys I work with, he says, I'm really best at preparing my sermons. It all comes together on Saturday night for me, and I'm like, okay, I've been there, and I'm sure every one of you would go, wow, I've had it all come together on Saturday night before. But let me say something. If you can think ahead further, you can do some absolutely amazing things because of the forethought, because you've thought about this ahead of time. And people want to be in an environment where people are thinking way ahead. And in your sermon, you might come up and pull off your 3 points in a poem and be able to get it done. But if you're doing any kind of follow-up to your sermon, okay, if you're, if you're preaching, say, an addiction issue, okay, you're preaching about recovery and some of that kind of stuff, you might want to pull something together and say, hey, listen, I have 3 time slots on Monday that I have saved for you, anyone in this church. And they're first come, first serve, because I can tell you, I know something about addictions. They're not something that you necessarily want to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm a porn addict in front of everybody, or I'm an alcoholic and nobody knows. But I have 3 slots. I have one at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock, and I have those. And here's what I want you to do. On your connection card, I want you to write down one of those time slots, 1, 2, or 3. And if there's a couple of them that come in at the same time, I'll call you. We'll get it straightened out. But I save time for you this Monday to talk with you about your specific issue. And my office is going to be here, and we're going to talk on the phone, or you can come in person. But I want you to write 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, or 3 o'clock on your connection card, and we'll get connected. Okay? And suddenly you have forethought. You have saved time to work with them on a particular problem that they have. Okay? We had a pastor just preached the other day on, he said, I want you to do this 4 times a day, or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly what he was telling people to do 4 times a day. And we got to talking about, you could put a little sticky note. I probably got one here. There's one right here. These little Post-it note things. You take a sticky like this and you put it in your bulletin. So you open up your bulletin and there's a blank sticky note in there. And everyone's like, Pastor, what's a sticky note in the bulletin for? It's like, you'll find out halfway through the sermon. Okay. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to write 9 o'clock. I want you to write noon on your sticky. I want you to write 3 o'clock, and I want you to write 6 o'clock on there. And those 3 times I'm going to have you pray, for our missions, or pray for whatever it happens to be. And then I want this sticky to go on your mirror or on your dashboard. Okay. on your mirror at your house or your dashboard. So it's going to remind you to pray for those things. And that's just a simple, silly illustration. But we've done the sticky thing in the bulletin many times where you have them write initials and then come stick it on a board or whatever. But you've thought about this ahead of time and you've created an atmosphere, and people walk into it and they go, wow, this is pretty cool. Okay. I didn't get to watch too much of the Charlie Kirk thing, but like most of you, was probably extremely touched by some of the things I heard there. It was wonderful. But I noticed, like in the crowd, they had people holding up placards at different times. And those placards said something about Charlie or Turning Point or whatever, but they were red, white, and blue all the way across the stadium. You know what? That took, I was thinking, it's like, what would it take to make that happen? Okay. I mean, to have 70,000 people holding up cards at different times to make these red, white, and blue stripes across the auditorium. But that type of forethought will stick with somebody for a long, long time. That is the atmosphere of, like, this church is all of, when someone walks in, they go, this church is all about me. They're thinking about me. They had refreshments for me, and they have a place to hang my coat, and they got a sticky note, and they're talking about me. The pastor invited me to his office at 2 o'clock to come talk about my problem. No, my priest never did that. Okay, my Presbyterian church never did that. The church that they don't even know anyone that's ever done that. We need to have that atmosphere there. Okay, it's a powerful, powerful thing. And the last thing here is, again, is sort of it's this idea of elevating relationships where we are taking time and we're just really spending time celebrating relationships. So, it's where in your sermon, you can say, hey, had a wonderful thing happen. Boy, a person came and sat in my office at 1 o'clock. We talked about their issues. We got a great time. And you talk about relationships that are there. One of the things that all of our churches have, and this is a powerful thing that we've done, is they go traveling. Let me grab my cup here. I'll show you. We have people that go traveling on vacation. And they're gone on vacation. And so what we did one year is we got these cups. This one here, you can probably see it there. It says, I love my church. We gave coffee cups to everybody. And we said, make sure you take your coffee cup with you. And we want a picture of your cup wherever you are on vacation. And so all throughout the summer, we had people sending in pictures, and we have all different colors of this. And they're at the Grand Canyon. They're at the Washington Monument. They're at all sorts of places. And every Sunday during the summer, it became kind of the fun thing. It's like, hey, let me show you where everybody is. And while we're missing people, obviously missing them because they're not in church, they're off on a vacation somewhere, we were honoring relationships and letting people know that we love them. And then when they came back, people were like, man, I saw your cup. You went to Washington Monument. Man, always wanted to go there. That type of thing. So powerful, powerful things. Now, let me get back to, let's see. Now, you should have a thing like this, and what I'll do is put my abbreviations in there real quick. Okay, solutions, atmosphere, relationships. Okay, so it kind of looks like this. These are the things that we kind of covered. Now, in the next few minutes, I just want to tell you how to do things right now that will help you do the right stuff. In other words, this afternoon, what am I going to do? Now, you are going to work on solutions. You're going to try to do something with relationships, and you could try to do something with your atmosphere and your relationships. So you take a word and take the word budget, okay? And I'll stick it over here on the edge. Budget, okay? I kind of stuck it over there. It's kind of small. But what can I do with my budget to help with the solutions? Is there a money thing that I could do there? Is there something with atmosphere? Well, I can't think of anything, solutions with budget, but atmosphere, yeah, we could, we could probably do cookies or something, we could probably do something that would keep people around. With the relationships there, can I do something with there that has to do with money? It's like, I don't know about that one. Let's put another word there. How about facility? Okay. My facility, is there something I could do with that to help with the solutions? Ooh, with the relationship one, I can definitely think of something right there. our facility, we need to add some chairs where people actually sit down. And guys, one of the things we did, we got some of those taller kind of bistro tables, where people kind of walk in and they kind of hold their coffee cup. And whether you have refreshments in your auditorium or not, that doesn't matter. But people have some refreshments someplace, and when they all stand around in a circle, and it's like, yeah, I could, change some, budget. In fact, I could buy some tables and then I could put them in my facility there. But you put things across there. Let me just give you a couple ideas of things to put across here. I'll just write them on the thing. So we said budget. So you can think about, your budget. You can think about your facility. Okay. Volunteers. Write that one down. Volunteers. What can I do with volunteers? So you write down volunteers and you put it across that grid. Okay. It's like, oh man, someone could help. I could meet with all my teachers and talk to them about every Sunday, solve a problem. Okay. What can I do with volunteers? Oh, I could get my volunteers to actually talk to everybody instead of just having greeters. I could make sure that everybody, is well trained in here. Oh, volunteers. Yes, my volunteers I need to teach them how to be better at relationship stuff. Let me give you another one here. Let's see. I got a couple of them. Things that you print. Okay. Okay. Print. Okay. I wrote down another one. Media. Let's see. Calendar. Calendar. Okay. I just wrote these down. These are just examples of things that you can write and put across this grid. So you just sit down, with your calendar stuff and go, wow, we could do something right here. Okay. Or wow, printing. Okay. We got the printing. I could print some stuff that would help out with the relational stuff. And you build this grid of all the things you can do. And again, you put print and people, and you can actually put someone's name on here. My assistant pastor, how could he help me with all of these things? And then on the management thing, and I want to wrap this up because I promised to get this done in about 40 minutes. Okay. On the management thing is you pick one of those and get it done. Okay. You're not going to do them all. It's not going to happen. Okay. It might be this one. It might be one over here. It might be one down here somewhere. But you pick one of those things, and every day you do one of those things to improve. One of the best practices that is followed, besides just this whole idea of, solutions and atmosphere and relationships, is one of the best things is that every day you do something to improve your church. You work on it and not in it. I'm not talking about your sermon. I'm not talking about meeting with an individual person, but you kind of get out and strategize out there, pull out and work on the strategy. I got a big thing on my board written right over here. It says strategy is a plan of action with an end in mind. A strategy is the plan of action with an end in mind. And we need to have a strategy, and these three things will be your strategy to help you reach young families for the years to come. Now, you may have to do something like this, because you got a missions conference and you got a Christian school, and some of you involved politically and got other things you got to do. I understand. But if you want to reach young families, and I'll make my appeal, I think there's a lot of important things in the church, but I don't know what's much more than to create an amazing local church experience that young moms and dads can bring their children to. And they will sit in a service, and when they walk out the door, they will go, wow, I've never been to anything like that before. I think that is one of the most important things that you can work on. And so I want to challenge you with all of this stuff. And again, these are best practices. And I know there can be a ton of questions that kind of, fall into all of this. We like to say, in order to reach young families, you got to do young family things. You got to have your mind reaching out towards young families. And that's what I'm trying to challenge the churches I work with anyway around the country, guys like you. So trying to help you out with that type of stuff. So anyway, all that said that's the best practices is you solve problems every Sunday. When people walk in, and they walk out with something, man, they will be back the next week. And if that atmosphere is just the aroma of your church is exciting. I have visited some churches this summer with someone else. I'll be with you in just a second there, Matt. I visited a couple of churches this summer with some family members. We were in a church, in a community, wanted to go check out a couple of churches, and they were not a good aroma. Okay. It wasn't the physical smell. It was just like, man, I don't think I want to come back. I mean, and they were fundamental, and they were independent, and they were Baptist. And it's a shame, but they were not prepared. They were not ready for guests. They were not welcoming in any way. And the atmosphere was good, and there was zero relational stuff. But we need to work on that stuff. So, all right. Hey, I'll leave it at that. Do we have some questions? You turn your mic on if you need to. And let's see, Brother Cannon, Mark, I see your hand. Go ahead. Okay, I'm back with you here. If you have some questions, and this was a Zoom training that we did a few days back, but if you have some questions, I'm here for you. And you can reach me a couple different ways. The one is just our email address, comes generally here to info@reachkeep.com, and you could type in something on that, just info at reachkeep.com. And then the other way is to go to our website, reachkeep.com. And when you get there, across the top at the home page, and I think it's almost on every page, is a green bar there. And you click on that, and it will get you to my scheduler, and I'll be able to spend some time with you. It basically, what it does is we'll set up a phone call, 30, 40-minute phone call. And I talk to pastors all the time. And by the way, if you're not the pastor, but you're running the teens or the nursery or whatever, would love to chat with you. And I chat with people like that every day. Would love to talk and help you with your specific thing and help you to reach new young families. So we're here for you. And so go to reachkeep.com, click that green bar, and we'll get in touch. So thank you so much. If this has been helpful, of course, give us a thumbs up and share this with another pastor or church leader or someone in your church. There's a share button. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's pretty easy to share. There's a share button at the bottom. If it's a podcast, go ahead and subscribe, and you can send a link. You probably know how to do that to a friend, but we would love to help as many people as we can. We're here for you. So God bless. Thank you very much, and we'll see you here the next time here at the Reach Keep podcast. And don't forget our other podcast, the Better Sundays podcast. Both of them can be found at reachkeep.com, and we'll see you soon.